Chosen one, anchor your spirit to what I'm about to say right now. That quiet ache you have been carrying, the one that whispers you did all of that for nothing, silence it. The enemy is working overtime today for one reason and one reason only. He sees what is being released in your direction, and he is desperate to convince you it is not coming. It is coming, and it is coming because of what you chose to do when no one else would. Think back to that moment this week, or maybe last week, when every voice around you said, walk away, give up, stop pouring into something that was not pouring back into you. And you stayed, you obeyed. Not because it was easy, not because anyone applauded you, but because something deep inside your spirit said this is the right thing to do, and you did it anyway. You did not know it then, but that moment of obedience was the transaction that moved heaven. God did not stop everything in your day just to pass this message over you. He stopped it because the verdict is in, and it is time for you to hear it. You did not find this recording by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. God did. This is a divine appointment written into your story before the foundations of the earth were laid. You are not stumbling through a season. You are arriving at a threshold. Stay until the very last second of this message, because in the next few minutes, I am going to deliver the legal decree that confirms your obedience has been received in the courts of heaven. I am going to show you exactly why the silence you have been living in was never rejection. It was preparation. And at the end, I am going to give you a declaration that seals this new season open and permanently shuts the door on the one that was draining you. Do not click away. Your future self is on the other side of this message, and if you leave before the end, you risk walking back into a chapter God has already closed. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. It has not just been quiet. It has been the kind of quiet that makes you question everything, like the atmosphere has been holding its breath. Maybe you were lying in bed this week, staring at the ceiling at 3 in the morning, running through every decision you have made in the last few months, wondering if you made the right call, wondering if your sacrifice even registered anywhere. Or maybe you were sitting in a room full of people who chose differently than you, people who cut corners, who said what was easy, who looked out for themselves, and you watched them moving forward while you sat still, and something in you asked the question you were almost afraid to admit. Did I make a mistake by doing the right thing? You feel like you have been suspended, like you obeyed your way into a waiting room with no number and no name being called. And in that waiting room, the enemy has started whispering a very specific lie. He has been telling you that your obedience was foolish, that the people who compromised are winning and you are losing. He has been replaying that moment when you chose integrity over opportunity. That moment when you stayed silent and let someone else take the credit. That moment when you gave, when you had nothing left to give. And he has been telling you that was weakness, that God noticed their results and forgot your faithfulness. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. Galatians 6:9 says, "And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not faint." Listen to that promise. In due season you shall reap, not in their season, not on the world's timeline, in due season. And chosen one, your season has arrived. The reaping God ordained for your obedience does not come on the schedule of the people who watched you. It comes on the schedule of the one who saw you. The enemy has been telling you that your due season passed while you were waiting. That is not a revelation. That is a lie dressed up as a conclusion. You are not late. You are due. The heaviness you feel right now is not the weight of being forgotten. It is the weight of something enormous being placed into position above your life, ready to be released. The tension you cannot shake is not the tension of loss. It is the tension of a promise being stretched to its final limit before it breaks open in your favor. You think your obedience went unnoticed. You think choosing the harder, quieter, less celebrated path cost you something you will never get back. Let me reframe your reality right now. Every act of obedience you performed when no one was watching was a deposit. And God does not lose deposits. He does not misplace faithfulness. He does not overlook the ones who chose him when choosing him was inconvenient, uncomfortable, and costly. He has been building something with every moment you said yes when your flesh screamed no. You did not fall behind. You were being qualified. Most chosen ones who hear a message like this feel the fire for about 48 hours. Then the dryness returns, the doubt creeps back, the silence gets louder, and within a week they are exactly where they were before, waiting, wondering, spiritually exhausted. That cycle breaks today, or it does not. The inner sanctum puts a prophetic word from the throne room in your hands every single morning. 365 days of hearing God before the world can speak first. The link is in the first pinned comment. It will not be there forever, and neither will this window God just opened for you. And so let's begin right there, because what you just heard is only the surface of what God is trying to show you today. We are about to plunge into the subterranean currents of divine activity, revealing the hidden workings of grace that have been shaping your reality even when you felt most unseen. Here is what most people miss about the waiting room. They assume silence means absence, like an empty theater where the lights have gone out and the performers have simply abandoned the stage. They read the stillness as a sign that heaven stopped paying attention, that the cosmic choreographer has paused the music of their life and perhaps even forgotten their name. But I want you to consider something that might completely reframe everything you have experienced in this season, illuminating the dark corners of your deepest questions. Silence in the natural is often the loudest activity in the spiritual. It is the sacred hush before a grand reveal, the quiet concentration of a master craftsman meticulously shaping a masterpiece. When God goes quiet on the outside, when the clamor of answered prayers diminishes and the tangible signs seem to recede, it is almost always because he is moving with profound intention on the inside, in you, around you, and on your behalf in realms you cannot see with your eyes or measure with your emotions. This is not a void. It is a sacred incubator, a divine forge where the unseen is being wrought and the future is being meticulously designed. It is the gestation period for miracles, a time when the roots of your purpose are deepening in the unseen soil of faith, preparing for a magnificent bloom. Think about Elijah. Here was a man who called down fire from heaven, a display of raw, undeniable divine power that consumed the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and even the water in the trench. A man who had just witnessed one of the most dramatic public displays of divine power in all of Scripture, silencing the prophets of Baal and turning a nation back to God. And yet, immediately after that moment of supernatural victory, after the exhilarating crescendo of fire and conviction, he ran. He fled into the wilderness, exhausted not just physically, but spiritually and emotionally. He sat under a broom tree, a barren place of despair, and told God he was done. He said, "It is enough." His spirit was weary, his soul was heavy, and he longed for an end to the relentless pressure. In that pivotal moment of utter brokenness and raw vulnerability, the voice of God did not come in the cataclysmic earthquake that rent the mountains, shaking the very foundations of the earth. It did not come in the powerful rushing wind that tore through the landscape, nor in the consuming fire that scorched everything in its path. These were all expressions of God's power, yet they were not the chosen medium for his intimate communication with his weary prophet. No, in that moment of profound human fragility, the divine voice came in a still, small voice. The ancient Hebrew renders it as kol demama daka, a whisper of sheer silence, a sound so quiet, so subtle, so profoundly nuanced that only someone who had been stripped of all their external noise, all their internal clamor, all their preconceived notions of how God should speak, could possibly hear it. It required an absolute cessation of human striving and expectation, a deep surrender into quietude. Chosen one, beloved vessel, the reason your season has been so quiet, the reason the external fanfare has ceased and the palpable presence seems withdrawn, is not because God stopped speaking. It is not an indication of his absence or indifference, quite the contrary. It is because he is speaking in a frequency that only stillness can receive. Imagine a powerful radio signal transmitting profound truths and divine instructions, but your receiver is tuned to the wrong station, or perhaps it's overwhelmed by static and interference. God is broadcasting, always, but his message in this season is often whispered, not shouted. It demands a recalibration of your spiritual senses, an intentional tuning into the subtler wavelengths of his presence. It calls for an inner quietude that transcends mere physical silence, a tranquil heart, and a receptive spirit that can discern the sacred echoes amidst the din of earthly concerns. But here is where it goes deeper, far beyond the initial understanding of divine quietude. Because the silence is only one layer of what has been happening, it is the surface tension of a much more complex, strategic spiritual drama unfolding beneath. Underneath the silence, there has been something else at work. Something the enemy absolutely does not want you to identify, for its exposure would disarm one of his most potent tactics. He has been engineering your discouragement from a very strategic, deeply insidious position. He is not attacking your weakness in the way you might expect, by pointing out your past failures or highlighting your character flaws. No, that would be too obvious, too easily recognized as an assault. Instead, he is far more cunning. He is attacking your identity. He is not merely telling you that you failed in a specific task or moment, though he might certainly whisper that. He is telling you something far more dangerous, something designed to dismantle you from the inside out. He is telling you that who you are is not enough. He is suggesting that the very essence of your being, the core of your spirit, is fundamentally lacking, insufficient, unworthy. He implies that the version of you that chose obedience when it was costly, that chose integrity when compromise was tempting, that stayed rooted in faith when everyone else walked away into easier paths, that brave, resilient, surrendered version of you made a profound miscalculation. He wants you to believe that your steadfastness was foolishness, that your faith was naive, that your devotion led you astray. And if you believe that insidious lie, if you internalize that narrative of inadequacy, you do not just lose your temporary peace, which is a significant loss in itself. Far more catastrophically, you lose your posture. And your posture, your spiritual stance before God and the world, determines everything you can receive, everything you can sustain, and everything you can become. A slumped, defeated posture cannot receive the open hand of blessing, for its palms are closed in despair, its eyes cast down in shame. This is why David, a man intimately acquainted with both anointing and agony, triumph and treacherous trials, said in Psalm 27, amidst a backdrop of enemies and accusations, "I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." Notice the precise wording, the deliberate emphasis. He did not say unless I had proof, a tangible, irrefutable evidence of God's goodness manifest in his immediate circumstances. Proof is often external, circumstantial, and subject to change. What he emphasized was far more profound and internally rooted. He said, "Unless I had believed." Faith is not the absence of doubt, for doubt is often a natural human response to uncertainty, a shadow that can cling to the brightest of lights. Faith is the decision to maintain your posture in the presence of it. It is an active volitional choice to stand firm, to anchor your soul in the unwavering truth of God's character and promises. Even when the storms of life rage, the evidence is scarce, and every fiber of your being screams to capitulate. It is the unwavering conviction that God is who He says He is, and He will do what He says He will do, regardless of what your senses report or your emotions dictate. It is the unwavering stance of expectation, holding firm to the truth that the divine hand is moving even when it feels like all is lost. And this leads us to something most people miss entirely about their own breakthrough, a critical insight that often remains obscured by the very intensity of their longing. They spend so much time asking God when their breakthrough will come, when the season will end, when the promise will manifest, that they never stop to ask, what? What is being formed in me right now, in this crucible of waiting and silence, that could not have been formed any other way? What essential character attribute, what deep spiritual capacity, what resilient inner strength is being built through this delay, through this prolonged preparation that will allow me to hold what is coming without it destroying me? Because here is the profound, often overlooked truth about divine promotions and elevated assignments. They do not just land indiscreet, minutely on the unprepared. They land with deliberate precision on the ones whose character has been expanded, whose spiritual and emotional infrastructure has been meticulously built and reinforced to match the immense weight of what they are about to carry. The greater the blessing, the heavier the responsibility, and a fragile vessel will shatter under the pressure of overflowing favor. Consider the transformative journey of Joseph, a quintessential example of divine preparation through prolonged adversity. He did not go from the pit to the palace in a weekend, nor did his elevation happen overnight. His journey was a meticulous, multi-stage process, a divine curriculum designed to forge a leader of unparalleled wisdom and compassion. He went from the pit of abandonment and betrayal, cast aside by his own brothers, to Potiphar's house, a place of temporary favor, but also false accusation and temptation. From Potiphar's house, unjustly imprisoned, he descended to the dungeon, a place of forgotten dreams and prolonged injustice. And only then, after years of unseen suffering and faithful service in obscurity, did he ascend from the prison to the palace, becoming second only to Pharaoh. And at every single agonizing stage, the Bible makes a deliberate point of saying the same thing. The Lord was with him. Not that everything was comfortable, not that it made logical sense to Joseph or to anyone observing his plight, but that the Lord was with him, actively present, actively shaping, actively holding. And at every stage, Joseph was being stretched beyond his human limits. His character was being calibrated with divine precision, refined in the fires of adversity. His compassion was being deepened through personal suffering and witnessing the plight of others. His humility was being reinforced as he navigated cycles of elevation and humiliation. Why such an arduous process? Because you cannot effectively govern a mighty nation, responsible for the welfare of millions, with a small, unrefined, self-centered soul. And God, in His infinite wisdom and foresight, was not going to release Joseph into a large, pivotal assignment that would impact generations, with a soul that had not been made large enough, strong enough, and empathetic enough to handle its immense gravity and complexities without being crushed or corrupted. You, beloved, have been in that stretching. You have been in the crucible, in the forge, under the divine hand of the master sculptor. And I need you to stop calling it punishment. It is not retribution for some hidden transgression. It is preparation for a glorious revelation. It is the agonizing but essential process of expansion, making room for the abundant, overflowing life that God intends for you. It is the resistance training for your spiritual muscles, the deep breath before the dive, the quiet before the storm of blessing. And what is coming next will likely surprise you, because it speaks directly to the very thing you have been calling your greatest setback, your most crushing disappointment, the moment you felt utterly defeated and abandoned. This is where the narrative twists, where the divine perspective utterly transforms human perception. Stay with me, because this is where everything shifts, where the pieces begin to click into a breathtaking mosaic of divine intention. That thing that felt like the door closing on you, that gut-wrenching moment when an opportunity slipped away like sand through your fingers, the relationship that ended abruptly and left you reeling in heartbreak, the position that was taken from you before you felt ready to relinquish it, the dream that dissolved just as it seemed within reach. I need you to hear this carefully, internalize it deeply, and allow it to penetrate the places where resentment and confusion have taken root. What felt like a door closing was not God removing your access to something good, nor was it a divine act of withholding or punishment. It was God removing your attachment to the wrong destination. It was His sovereign hand, in His perfect timing, gently but firmly prying your fingers from a path that, while perhaps good, was not His best for you. He was not locking you out of your destiny. He was strategically redirecting your momentum, steering your course toward a far grander, more aligned future. And redirection, in its initial sting, always feels like rejection to a soul that has not yet learned to fully trust the map, to fully surrender to the divine cartographer who sees the whole journey, not just the next bend in the road. It feels like a slamming door when it is, in fact, a gentle but firm push towards an open gate of unparalleled opportunity. Ruth, the Moabite woman, understood this profound truth, though she could not have articulated it with theological precision. She did not know she was walking into the sacred lineage of Christ Himself, becoming an ancestor to the Messiah, when she made that courageous, desperate declaration to her mother-in-law, Naomi, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." She just knew, with an unshakable conviction forged in the fires of shared loss and profound respect, that what she had seen in Naomi's God was worth following, worth committing to, even when the path ahead looked like profound grief, debilitating poverty, and an utterly uncertain future devoid of any human guarantee. She made a covenant decision, a sacred vow of loyalty and faith in the middle of unimaginable loss and bleak prospects. And that covenant decision, born of pure heart and unwavering devotion, positioned her for a divine encounter with Boaz, her kinsman redeemer, an encounter she could have never engineered or orchestrated on her own through human wit or strategic planning. She did not strategize her way into favor. She did not manipulate circumstances or play a political game. She simply faithed her way into it, one step of obedient trust at a time. She showed up. She gleaned in the field, doing the humble, laborious work available to her without complaint. She kept moving, placing one foot in front of the other, faithfully responding to the opportunities that presented themselves, however small they seemed. And while she was moving in simple, steadfast obedience, heaven was meticulously arranging every detail, orchestrating divine appointments, aligning circumstances, and preparing the way for her extraordinary destiny. You, my chosen one, have been gleaning in a field that, to your natural eyes, looked utterly empty, barren, and devoid of promise. You have sown, you have toiled, you have waited, and perhaps you felt the sting of disappointment as you surveyed what seemed like a meager return. But let me assure you, the harvest was never truly gone. The harvest was never withheld. It was simply not where you were initially standing. The abundance was just ahead of where your limited perspective could see, waiting for your persistent steps to bring you into its glorious reality. Your labor was not in vain. It was the sacred tilling of the soil that prepared you for the richer, more abundant fields that lay just beyond your current horizon. Now, once you understand that, once you truly accept deep in your spirit and not just intellectually that your faithfulness has not been wasted, that your humble toil has accumulated divine credit, and that your field is not empty but rather awaiting your arrival at the next fruitful plot, you are ready for the layer that tends to make people profoundly uncomfortable. Because everything we have covered so far, every word about silence, identity, preparation, and redirection, is the encouragement. And the encouragement is real, it is profound, and it is vitally important for your spiritual sustenance. But there is also a confrontation that God is pressing me to deliver right now, a necessary jolt to awaken you to a deeper truth, and I will not pull back from it because I care too much about your ultimate freedom and your divinely appointed destiny to let you walk away with only the comfortable, affirming parts of this message. True love and true spiritual guidance sometimes requires confronting uncomfortable truths. Here is the part most people avoid, the inconvenient truth that often lies at the heart of their protracted struggle. Some of what you have been calling spiritual warfare, attributing every obstacle and internal struggle to an external demonic assault, is actually internal resistance. It is the deeply ingrained, often subconscious battle within your own soul. Some of what you have labeled as the enemy's attack, believing every moment of friction is a direct blow from the adversary, is actually the necessary divine friction between who you have been, the comfortable but limited self you've known, and who God has been relentlessly calling you to become, the expanded, purposed, and truly free version of yourself. And while the enemy is absolutely real, absolutely active, and utterly determined to derail your destiny, let there be no doubt about his existence and his malevolent intentions. The enemy cannot stop what God has irrevocably ordained for your life. He does not possess that ultimate authority, he can only delay it. And the only mechanism by which he can successfully delay it, the only leverage he truly has over your progress, is if you agree with his narrative about who you are, if you internalize his lies and make them your own truth. This means that the most dangerous battlefield, the most critical arena where spiritual victory or defeat is determined, is not out there in the visible world of circumstances or external adversaries. It is the 6 inches between your ears, the sacred but contested space of your mind. It is the story you tell yourself at 3 in the morning, in the vulnerable, unvarnished hours when your defenses are down and your deepest fears often surface. It is the private self-assessment, the internal monologue you return to when no one is celebrating you, when the applause has ceased, and you are left alone with your rawest thoughts. If that story, that insidious internal narrative, still contains the words, "not enough," "too late," "overlooked," "forgotten," "unworthy," "broken beyond repair," then you are tragically doing the enemy's job for him. You are collaborating with his agenda, actively confirming his lies over your own soul. And let me assure you, he is grateful for the assistance, for it requires far less effort on his part when you become your own worst accuser. Proverbs 23:7 profoundly declares, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." This is not merely a psychological observation, it is a spiritual law. The word heart in ancient Hebrew refers not just to emotions, but to the very core of one's being, the seat of intellect, will, and character. God designed you to move in the direction of your deepest belief, your foundational convictions about yourself, and your place in his divine order. Which means that what you genuinely believe about yourself at the core, not what you say publicly to present a strong facade, but what you whisper privately to yourself in moments of raw honesty and vulnerability, that belief is quietly, powerfully shaping your entire reality. It is a silent architect, constantly constructing the framework of your experiences. It is either opening doors to opportunity and divine alignment, or it is firmly holding them shut, regardless of what external forces may attempt. And let me be clear, no amount of fervent prayer, no amount of outward spiritual activity, no amount of fasting or good works will override a deep-seated belief system that you have not yet courageously surrendered to God for radical renovation and transformation. It is like trying to drive a car with the parking brake on. All the engine power in the world won't get you far if an internal mechanism is holding you back. This is where the real transformation begins, the seismic shift that truly unlocks your destiny. Not primarily in the changing of your external circumstances, though those will inevitably follow, but fundamentally in the changing of your internal conclusions about who you are, what you're capable of, and what God's truth declares over your life. It's an inside-out revolution. And just when you think you have begun to grasp this profound truth, just when the pieces of this divine puzzle seem to be clicking into place, there is one more layer, a final, stunning revelation. And this is the one that tends to break everything open, exposing the deepest roots of perceived delays and unleashing the full force of your appointed destiny. In just a moment, we are going to reach the place in this message that most people are not expecting. The hidden thing beneath the hidden thing, the ultimate revelation that redefines everything. But first, this profound truth has to land deeply in your spirit. You have been praying for God to move on the outside, for Him to alter your circumstances, to rearrange the external landscape of your life, to send a breakthrough that manifests visibly and tangibly. But the primary, most pressing invitation of this season, the deepest desire of heaven for you, has been to let Him move on the inside. You have been asking for doors to open, envisioning new opportunities and easy access, when what God has truly been doing, with meticulous care and divine precision, is renovating the very person who will walk through them. You have been waiting with bated breath for the promise to manifest, for the fulfillment of prophecies and dreams, when God has been patiently, lovingly, persistently saying, "I need you to become the one who can steward it." And let me assure you, beloved, that is not a rebuke from a frustrated father. That is a profound, life-altering revelation from a loving God who knows your true potential, because it means the delay was never punishment for some perceived failure or sin. It was, from the very beginning, intentional, purposeful preparation. And the incredible, liberating news is this: the preparation is almost complete. The unseen work is nearing its magnificent conclusion. Think of the magnificent temple Solomon built in Jerusalem, a dwelling place for the glory of God. Before a single stone was laid in the holy city, before the sound of construction filled the air, the Bible makes a deliberate point of detailing the extensive, unseen preparation. The majestic cedar trees were cut in the distant forests of Lebanon. The vast stones were quarried, hewn, and meticulously shaped far from the temple site. And here is the detail that matters most, the profound spiritual metaphor embedded in the ancient text. It says there was no sound of hammer or axe, or any iron tool heard in the house while it was being built. All the noisy, arduous, transformative preparation happened beforehand, in hidden places, away from the final assembly site. By the time the actual construction began in Jerusalem, everything was already cut to fit, perfectly measured, flawlessly shaped, ready for seamless assembly. The building rose silently, powerfully, each piece designed to interlock perfectly with the next. You, my chosen one, have been in the Lebanon phase. You have been in the quarry of unseen trials, of quiet cultivation, of deep inner reshaping. The profound, often painful shaping of your character, your capacity, your compassion, your courage has been happening in a place no one could see and no one could hear. Your tears have been the silent water shaping the stone. Your moments of quiet surrender have been the unseen cuts of the master craftsman, and what feels like an agonizing, endless delay is actually divine precision, a meticulous attention to detail that ensures your ultimate stability and longevity. God is not building a temporary shack, a flimsy structure that will quickly crumble under pressure. He is building something magnificent, a vessel of His glory that will stand for generations, a legacy that will echo through eternity. And that requires cuts that go deeper than you expected, processes that feel more intense than you desired, and seasons that last longer than you ever planned. But trust the divine architect. Every cut, every season, every silence serves a higher, grander purpose. But here is where it shifts into something I did not initially plan to say, something that surged into my spirit with an undeniable urgency, and yet I feel utterly compelled to deliver it, because someone watching this right now needs this specific, deeply personal word more than they need anything else in this message. This is the unexpected thing, the thing beneath everything we have covered today, the true foundation of your liberation, the real barrier, the ultimate impediment to your breakthrough and your full flourishing has not been the enemy in the way you might have externalized him. It has not been your past, though its shadows may have lingered. It has not been the people who wronged you, or the doors that closed in your face, or the crushing silence, or even the pervasive doubt that has plagued your mind. These are all real, they are significant, and they have impacted you deeply. But they are not the root. They are symptoms or manifestations of a deeper, more insidious issue. The root, and I need you to hear this with absolute grace, without an ounce of shame or self-condemnation, because understanding is the first step to freedom. The root has been an unexamined agreement you made, perhaps unknowingly, with a version of yourself that does not actually exist. A counterfeit identity forged in the fires of trauma, disappointment, and human limitation. A version of yourself that was defined tragically by your worst season, your deepest wound, your heaviest failure, your most profound abandonment. Somewhere along the arduous journey of life, in a moment of pain or exhaustion or self-protection, you made peace with a small, diminished, manageable vision of who you are, a version that felt safe, contained, and less vulnerable to further hurt. And you called that peace, but it was not true peace, beloved. It was a subtle, insidious surrender to a lesser story, a capitulation to a narrative that was never heaven's decree for your life. It was settling for the cage you built yourself, believing it was a sanctuary. You have been, unconsciously perhaps, asking God to bless and confirm the diminished version of you that you decided you were, the limited identity you constructed out of fear and survival. But God, in His profound love and unwavering commitment to your highest good, has been strategically withholding that blessing, not out of cruelty, not to punish you further, but because He absolutely refuses to confirm a diminished identity that He never designed for you. He cannot and will not co-sign a ceiling that He never designed for you. He will not validate a lie about His masterpiece. He is not trying to bless who you settled for, who you accommodated out of fear or resignation. Instead, He is actively, powerfully, and relentlessly drawing you into agreement with who He made you to be, the magnificent, chosen, powerful, and purposed being He envisioned before time began. And that divine agreement, that sacred realignment, requires you to courageously let go of the identity you built out of survival. It requires you to release the illusion of smallness that you clung to, believing it would keep you safe from further pain or scrutiny. It requires you to stand up, physically and spiritually, in the middle of everything that has tried to make you shrink, to diminish, to hide, and declare, with unwavering conviction, that you were made for more than this, not in arrogance, not in self-aggrandizement, but in humble, fierce obedience to what heaven has already decreed over your life. This is the moment of your true coronation. This is the shift. This is the moment. Not when your external situation miraculously changes, not when circumstances finally align perfectly, but when you, by an act of your sovereign will and a surrender of your limited understanding, change your agreement with who you are in it. And once that agreement shifts, and I want you to truly feel the weight, the seismic impact of this truth reverberating through every cell of your being. Once that agreement shifts from the lesser, survival-based identity to the divinely appointed true identity, everything else begins to realign. Because the universe itself responds to identity. It mirrors back to you what you fundamentally believe about yourself. Heaven responds to belief, activating its resources and opening its channels to those who walk in faith-filled identity. And the enemy, the great accuser, loses his grip, his power, and his legal claim the very moment you stop confirming the sentence, the lie, the diminished narrative he has been speaking over your life. His power dissolves when you retract your agreement. So place your hand on your heart right now, not symbolically, not as a fleeting gesture. Actually do it. Feel the rhythm of life within you, the spark of divine essence. And speak this truth, this declaration, this decree over yourself with every fiber of your being, allowing it to become the new foundation of your reality. I release the diminished version of myself that I built out of fear and pain and survival. I release every label that was placed on me by seasons, by people, by failure, and by the enemy. I am not what my worst moment said I was. I am not what the silence suggested. I am not behind, and I am not forgotten, and I am not late. I am exactly where the sovereign hand of God has placed me. I receive the identity heaven assigned before my mother's womb was formed. I receive the courage to carry what is coming without shrinking from its weight. I declare that the door on the old season is shut, permanently, spiritually, legally, and the door on this new season is open. And I walk through it now, not when I feel ready, not when everyone applauds, not when it is comfortable, but now, because I was chosen before the foundations of this earth were laid, and a chosen one does not wait for permission to walk in purpose. A chosen one walks, and heaven backs up every step. That is your word. That is your decree. This is the truth that sets you free and propels you forward. And if you received something profound, something deeply resonant from this message today, I want to ask you to do one thing. Not just mindlessly like or share this video, but genuinely ask yourself, with a raw, honest introspection, am I going to let this be another moment that felt powerful, deeply moving and spiritually exhilarating, and then dissolved into the background noise of tomorrow's distractions? Because the chosen ones who actually step into what God is releasing, who truly manifest their divine purpose, are not simply the ones who were the most moved in the moment. They are the ones who made a firm, unshakable decision in that moment of revelation, and then deliberately built a life around protecting that decision, nurturing that new identity, and walking it out daily. Your next step, the practical application of this profound truth, is waiting for you in the first pinned comment below. Take it. Not because someone on a screen told you to, but because your spirit, that deepest part of your being, already knows this window of divine opportunity is not accidental, and it will not stay open forever. Seize the now, for your destiny awaits your courageous step.